Good evening and welcome to EastCast for Wednesday, January 27th, 1993. Along with Jeff Pollack, I'm Adam Litwin. Jody Cohen will be along later with news about all of East's winter sports. We'll also have information about East's latest theatrical production, Recycling Week, SGA elections, and more. But first, this week's SAT Word of the Week. Imprecation, I-M-P-R-E-C-A-T-I-O-N, a noun meaning a curse invoking evil. East's latest theatrical production, Godspell, hit the stage this past weekend. The response was incredible. Consensus shows that this production surpassed the normal mark for East productions. Godspell revived the 60s with its vivid costumes and its flower children. The ensemble of 16 people worked together with split-second timing and a rare rapport, which made each scene memorable. The cast was led by Eric Braverman, who played the role of Jesus, and Ryan Nation, who played the joint role of John the Baptist and Judas. The other members of the ensemble were Shelby Adams, Courtney Ames, Sarah Berg, Rebecca Freed, Jody Goldstein, Joanna Gray, Antoine Qatar, Lori Nobler, Jennifer Lipsius, Jason Lynch, R.J. Portella, Jonathan Ross, David Schwartz, and Ryan Wolfson. As always, the play was directed by Robert D. Nation and choreographed by Mary Beth Quinlan. East English teacher Paul Howe is the newest addition to the faculty crew. He served as the properties and sound manager. This is Recycling Awareness Week at East. To keep everybody thinking of the environment, green ribbons were distributed. The week's events are sponsored by Friends of the Environment. They published an East Recycler newsletter that describes the facts and the myths about recycling in Cherry Hill. The club has also composed a list of 8 environmental requests for Mr. Gallagher to consider looking into. The list includes questions about the paper recycling, energy-efficient lights, and a more energy-efficient heating system.
The student government elections were held today. This election was held for all 4 classes, for the officers being chosen while running for SGA offices, not class offices. The officers being voted on are President, Vice President for Student Affairs, Vice President for Student Activities, Secretary-Treasurer, and Publicity Chairman. 2 of this year's officers, President Tricia Alosa and Secretary-Treasurer Vinny Malhotra, are outgoing seniors. The other 3 officers are all seeking new posts. The candidates are for President Neil Alosa, the Vice President for Student Activities. He was also President of the Class of '94 for 2 years. And Ashley Baker, the Vice President for Student Affairs, and the sister of former SGA President Jennifer Baker. Both candidates are juniors. For Vice President of Student Activities, Jennifer Dwyer, the Vice President of the Class of '94, and Gary Ross, the brother of former SGA President Scott Ross, and he was President of the Class of '95 last year. For Vice President of Student Affairs, Brian Friedman, the SGA Publicity Manager, and Michael Lean, a junior. For Secretary-Treasurer, Mike Britchko, a junior, running against Ross Kaufman, a sophomore. And for Publicity Chairman, Ernest Del Duke is running unopposed. Del Duke is the Publicity Manager for the Class of '94. The President of SGA coordinates all school functions with the fellow officers and runs all SGA meetings and runs all services that the SGA provides in the school and community. The Vice President of Student Affairs and of Student Activities work together in the planning and running of events and student concerns. The Secretary-Treasurer keeps records of the SGA meetings and keeps record of the SGA money and how it is spent. The Publicity Chairman is in charge of publicizing school events. The SGA Board of Governors works closely with class officers to smoothly run the school's functions and student business. The Lip Sync Contest, one of East's most popular shows, takes place this Friday the 29th. With me tonight is the chairman of the Lip Sync, Ari Cohen.
Thank you, Jeff.
Ari, have there been any changes made since last year's show?
As a matter of fact, Jeff, there have been some changes. First, last year, we didn't judge the lip sync show, but this year we are going to judge it. Some students that are in student government in West are coming over to help judge the show. And this year, there is going to be a prize. Neil Rolosa will give the winner of the lip sync show a big wet kiss.
How many groups will be performing at this year's show?
Well, Jeff, there'll be about 15 or 16 groups. We might even be expecting a staff group from Cherry Hill East's wonderful teaching corps.
What kinds of music will there be?
This year there's going to be some rap and some hard rock, but there's going to be a preponderance of some popular rock and roll, such as top 40s, and there's also going to be a lot of dance numbers.
What were you looking for when the groups tried out?
Well, we were looking for organization and what they could do and how they could make the show a better show this year than it was last year. Basically, we asked them to show about a minute and a half of their act, and we judged by that minute and a half whether they would make it or not. Unfortunately, all the groups made it this year, which means that some of them weren't very good.
So why do you feel the show is so popular?
Well, I think a lot of people like to see their friends do crazy things and make fools of themselves. That is why the show is so popular.
Thank you, Ari.
Thank you, Jeff.
The lip sync contest is this Friday at 7:30 in the auditorium, and admission is $4.
The Foreign Language Literary Society, who brings you Passport Magazine, is sponsoring the latest of East's ever-present volleyball tournaments. It's being held the evenings of March 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th from 7:30 to 10:30 p.m. The cost is $2 per person. Teams must have between 6 and 12 people, and they need not be co-ed. The team that wins the tournament will divide a cash prize. The amount of the prize is to be determined based on the total amount of money that the tournament brings in. The Foreign Language Literary Society, or FLLS, received national recognition earlier this school year for their work on Passport 92. The editors of the publication are Ann Lim and Elaine Tong. The faculty advisor is Craig Burgess. On Monday, Louis Carloso, a reporter for the Philadelphia Inquirer, visited East to talk with the Cable 18 and East Side staffs. Mr. Carloso attended Carusi Junior School, where he got his start in journalism working on their newspaper. He graduated from High School West and then went to Rutgers University to obtain an English degree. After a few years with a rock band, he decided to go work on a newspaper. Lou explained to the students what it's like to be a reporter, and also gave them tips on writing as well as interviewing techniques. He has promised to return to help anyone who's interested in journalism and reporting, as well as offering to take students with him for a typical day as a reporter.
Last Friday, there was the annual Asian New Year's banquet for faculty members to celebrate Monday's Lunar New Year. The event was jointly sponsored by the Asian Cultural Society, headed by President Gerald Su, and the Korean Culture Club, headed by President Sandra Lee. For those of you interested, this is the Chinese Year of the Rooster. The banquet featured homemade, traditional, and Oriental food that included Korean, Chinese, Japanese, and Indian delicacies such as bulgogi, fried rice, dumpling, wada, kimchi, mixed noodles, and sushi. And of course, none of the food caused implications in the members. A number of students worked on the event, including Korean Culture Club officers Vice President Melody Lee, Secretary-Treasurer Susanna Yi, and Publicity Manager Christine Kim, and Asian Cultural Club Vice President Florence Liu, Secretary-Treasurer Hubert Tong, and Conan Ko, and Publicity Manager Michael Jen, and to all the club members and parents who helped make this annual East event a day we anticipate. Thanks also to the advisors, Mr. Chuck Kim and Mr. Matthew Carr, for their help. The winter sports season is heating up, and with all the news in East sports, here's Jody Cohen.
It's been a roller coaster ride for East sports this past week. After a dismal Tuesday and Wednesday, East rose to greater heights with a winning end to the week's ride on Thursday and Saturday. East boys basketball team continued the year of rebuilding with a 1-2 record for the week. On Tuesday, the Cougars suffered a heartbreaking loss to Washington Township, 49-45. Brent Fisher scored 17 points to lead the team in a losing effort. The team did rebound on Thursday with a 58-54 nail-biting victory over Cinnaminson. Some of the leading scorers were the starting point guard Brendan Cody with 19 points, senior John Brand had 12 points, and starting sophomore center Brian Laveau scored 14 crucial points. Finally, the team ended the week with an unfortunate loss to Cherokee, 60-56, despite Brent Fisher's 25-point performance. Now on to girls basketball news. In their opening game, the girls' number 13 ranked team experienced a devastating loss to number 1 Washington Township, 48-34. Captain Jill Marple led the team with 12 points. The team recovered with the 58-40 annihilation of Paul VI. Danielle Pulliams led the Cougars' ferocious offensive attack with 21 points, while being complimented by Jill Marple, who scored 14 points, and Melissa Durproposian with 12. The girls ended the week with another explosive victory by defeating Lenape 67-45. Jill scored almost a third of the points with 24, and junior Chrissy Regan helped with 13 points. Now we're going to jump out of the pool, dry off, and move on to the mats, where the Muscle Men of East wrestled a 1-1 week. The team was body slammed last Tuesday, 59-3. The team quickly got up and beat Edgewood on Saturday, 34-28, as senior captains Jeff DeYoung, Achilles Alon, and Jeff Weismer all had wins. Finally, for a bit of sports news away from East, I, along with many other East students, attended Saturday night's Philadelphia Wings indoor lacrosse game. This is really becoming a popular event for East students. The Wings defeated the Detroit Turbos 22-15 with an amazing performance by the Gate brothers, Paul and Gary, who each scored 6 points. If you haven't checked them out already, they'll be back in town on February 6th. And for freshmen who aren't going to their dance, don't worry, this will be just as exciting. For those who did attend the game, don't forget to pick up your 12 free Buffalo Wings at the ground round. This has been Jody Cohen for Cable 18 Sports.
That's all for tonight's EastCast. For Cable Advisor Keith Haynes, cameraman Mr. Gordon Hampson, sports anchor Jody Cohen, and my co-anchor Adam Litwin, I'm Jeff Pollack. Thanks for watching. Coming up next, the Carusi election special. Tonight, we leave you with Chelsea and her pick for the winner of the Super Bowl.
Woof.
Good evening. Welcome to the West Report. I'm Ann Ebi.
And I'm Genevieve Garrido. The Faculty Talent Show was held last Friday at 7:30 in the auditorium. Deborah Lassiter, Leslie McNair, Dave Marica, and Jason Brand hosted the show. It started with a song entitled Someone to Watch Over Me, sung by Miss Kelly. This was followed by a duet by Mr. and Mrs. Kaczynskis. Among other performances were Mr. Simon as a bicycling stuntman, a skit entitled Whose Kimosabe Are You?, headed by Mr. Julora and Mr. Pinzer. Co-stars were Mrs. LaCush, Mrs. Lapido Johnson, Miss Kelly, Mrs. Wallace, Mr. Irwin, Mrs. Dalton, and Mrs. Bass. The famous men of note made an appearance minus Aaron Lazar. Mr. and Mrs. Bass capped off the evening with a rendition of Beauty and the Beast.
And if you're wondering about the Student Talent Show, which was originally scheduled for January 29th, it has been postponed until March 26th, and tryouts are the week of March 15th.
The Asian Culture Club is sponsoring the Best of West volleyball tournament in the Walsh Gym on Friday, February 5 at 7 p.m. The rules are as follows. First, each team will have 6 players and 1 optional substitute. Second, each player pays $2. Third, each team must have at least 2 underclassmen and at least 1 girl. Fourth, there will be 2 judges to a court, and their decisions are final. If you want to play in a team, you must get a form from Joy Lowe at F22 or Brian Lowe in the cafeteria during homeroom. There will be an open court for anyone who wants to play but isn't on the team. It's been a great week in sports, and here's our very own sports reporter, Dave Marica, to tell us all about it.
The West girls basketball team raised its record to 11-1 last week by beating Edgewood 61-37, Eastern 50-46, and Haddon Heights 50-38. Janaea Butler led the team in scoring all 3 games with 22 points, 21 points, and 19 points respectively. Joanna Elias also had a strong week for the Lady Lions, scoring in double figures in all 3 contests. The team will play East and will then try to avenge its only loss of the season against Washington Township tomorrow. On the other hand, the boys basketball team lost 3 games last week. The team began with a 64-49 loss to Edgewood, which was followed by a 58-54 heartbreaker to Eastern. On Saturday, the Lions closed the week by falling to Haddon Heights 69-47. Anthony Succi led the team with 17 points against Edgewood and 16 against Haddon Heights. Pat Boyce had 20 points against Eastern. The boys, who are now 3-9, play East and Washington Township this week. In its lone meet last week, the boys swim team drubbed Gloucester Township Tech. All swimmers placed well for West. They swim Shawnee, West Deptford, and Highland this week. The girls swim team swam strongly last Tuesday, but their performance was not enough to beat highly ranked Shawnee. The team lost 104-82. Lauren Semino was West's only double winner, with first places in both the 200 IM and the 100 backstroke. Adrian Thorpe, Amy Hogan, Laura Newman, and Jody Sanders also had individual first places for West. The team is idle this week. The West wrestling team won 1 and lost 1 last week. The team began with a 35-30 victory over Camden. On Saturday, the Lions lost to Overbrook 36-29. Chris Staniak, Todd Updike, Randy Goldberg, Brian Ulmer, and Bob Supio all had 2-0 weeks individually for West. The boys wrestle Triton tonight, and Highland on Saturday. And finally, the boys and girls bowling teams will play Gloucester Township, Tech, and East this week. Also, the team will participate in the Cherry Hill West Scotch Doubles Tournament. Just in, Cherry Hill West girls varsity basketball coach Gene McDonnell has won Coach of the Week. Most likely, we will have an interview with him next week. And finally, it's time for my prediction for the Super Bowl. I think the more experienced Buffalo Bills are going to be victorious 21-17. I think the experience is the key. They will not lose 3 years in a row. Well, that's all the sports. Now back to the West Report.
All-State Symphonic Band and Wind Ensemble tryouts were held Saturday, January 23rd. 7 West students, including me, were accepted into these honorable bands. In the Wind Ensemble are Ken Robinson, Todd Groves, and Becky Effler, and Jeremy Munger, Peter Greenfogel, Liz Watson, and yours truly, Ann Ebi, are in the Symphonic Band. Congratulations. The West Spring musical this year is West Side Story. An important part of any musical production is the pit orchestra. I interviewed its director, Mr. Goldman. Have you conducted this score before for West Side Story?
No, this is my first time, but it looks to be very challenging.
Does Bernstein's score or its level of difficulty pose any particular problems?
Well, this is perhaps the most difficult of all orchestral music in the musical, Broadway musical idiom. The orchestra itself is much bigger than we have been used to here at Cherry Hill West. It presents a problem with, first of all, room in the pit, finding enough room for all the players. The quality of the parts is very, very difficult. It's a phenomenally difficult show to perform, and the number of people needed to play it at different times makes it a very difficult show.
Another problem of any musical is the balance of volume between the vocalists and the orchestra. How do you deal with that?
Well, as I said before, the show is written for a full orchestra, a full symphonic orchestra, and I guess there'll have to be that delicate blend between amplification and acoustic singing. But we will make it happen. We always do.
Will the pit be exclusively students this year?
There will be present and former students. There will be a few recent graduates of Cherry Hill West who will lend a hand in making this a wonderful experience, but it will all be students, yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about the rehearsal schedule?
Well, presently we're rehearsing for about 2 hours on Mondays and Wednesdays, and as the show gets closer, we'll make that happen a lot more. We'll start rehearsing at night. The members of the cast will start coming into the band room, and then finally we'll move into the pit about 2 weeks before the show so that we can begin to actually work out all the nooks and crannies of the performance.
Okay, thank you very much. That has been Mr. Goldman, the director of the pit orchestra for West Side Story.
The humanities class visited the Islamic Center, a mosque in Princeton, New Jersey, as part of their spirituality unit. The visit included discussions on the nature of Islam and the difficulty in trying to maintain a faithfulness to the religion while living in an American culture. The students also had an opportunity to observe an Islamic prayer service. Next, they will visit a synagogue and a church to observe rituals of the religion. If you're interested in Western civilizations, religions, or the Renaissance, but are not taking the class, you can still join the Humanities Club and take part on other exciting trips.
The Men and Women of West calendars are still on sale, but they're going quickly, so if you want one, buy one soon. Among the ladies pictured in the Women of West calendar are Michelle Moy, Tara Ergood, Marta Levy, and Nicole Feliciano. In the Men of West calendar, you can see pictures of Steve and Chris Perrone, Joel Correa, Randy Cook, Joe Molinaro, and Rod Ramirez, just to name a few. You can get your calendar for $10 during any lunch period in the cafeteria, at any basketball game, or in F-22 during homeroom. Send a carnation to your very own man or woman of West. For only $1 during any lunch period, you can send a carnation plus a personalized message for Valentine's Day. Proceeds go to the sophomore class government.
That about wraps it up for tonight's West Report. Please stay tuned for the Carusi election special. Good night.
Good night.
Good evening. I'm Dave Lazowski, and welcome to Carusi News. Tonight's top story is the Beck Carusi dance. Here with the story is Michelle Hart.
On Friday, January 22nd, Carusi hosted the Beck Carusi Dance. Approximately 400 students showed up from Carusi, and 332 students came from Beck. Music was played by the pros. There were 3 movies played. One was a comedy, another was a sports comedy, and the last was an MTV video. Pizza, candy, chips, and soda was served in the cafe. There was dancing in the gym. The school was decorated as a rainforest, which was the theme. Student council members from both schools met to come up with the theme and decorations. We would like to thank student council members from both schools who worked on making the dance so successful. Thanks also goes out to staff members and chaperones for coming and keeping things under control. The dance was a huge success and everyone had a blast.
Thanks, Michelle. Last week, Carusi's 8th grade students began their scheduling process for the first year at West. This whole process began Friday, January 15th, when students got out of their gym class for a half-an-hour assembly. Students received booklets on the courses and opportunities offered at West. Tuesday night, January 19th, students and their parents went to West at 7:30 for another meeting about their freshman year. During the presentation, Mr. David Out, West assistant principal, explained what would be going on from now until the end of the students' freshman year. Throughout this whole presentation, prizes with the West line on it were given out when questions posed about a student's freshman year were answered correctly. Then, that night, parents and students went to the cafeteria, where booths were set up for each academic department. So far, scheduling is going well, but there is still much more to come. Now, with highlights from last week's assembly, is Diane Zubikowski.
Last week's Cherry Hill West Music Assembly was a lot better than everyone expected. Performing were the Wind Ensemble, West Singers, Chamber Singers, and the Men of Note. Some of the soloists were Dave Marika, Aaron Lazar, Scott Grazer, and many more. These singers did a great job, and I'm sure they have a good reputation with all the students at Carusi. Back to you, Dave.
Thanks, Diane. Now for sports with Leslie Ryan.
Thanks, Dave. Last week's sports was highlighted with many exciting games. Here's Seth Demowitz with wrestling.
Thanks, Leslie. On Tuesday, January 19th, Carusi's wrestling team lost to Paulsboro Middle School by a score of 60-24. Jim Lupinetti, Brian Gismondi, Andy Cunningham, and Brian Duffy scored victories for Carusi. Their next meet on Thursday, January 21st, was against Delran Middle School, and Carusi lost by the score of 49-42. Led by the Italian Stallions, Jim Lupinetti and Brian Gismondi, Carusi staged a great rally but fell just short. Also scoring victories for Carusi were Anthony DePaul, Matt Alamy, Andy Cunningham, Adam Wenstrom, and Boris Zellen. In exhibition, Mike Young, David On, Carl Foster, Rich Burmeff, Sean Munoz, Dan Kazmersky, and Carlos Hernandez had victories. Monday, January 25th, Carusi's wrestling team defeated Edgewood Jr. by the score of 60-28. Scoring victories for Carusi were Jeff Webb, Brian Duffy, Adam Wenstrom, Andy Cunningham, Mike Young, Brian Gismondi, Brian O'Neill, Jim Lupinetti, Paul McCafferty, and Matt Alamy. In exhibition, Rich Burmeff, Sol Lee, and Tim Rosenblit had victories. Back to you, Leslie.
Thanks, Seth. Here's 8th grade boys basketball with Dave Zalkman.
The 8th grade boys basketball team defeated Morristown on Thursday by the score of 49-39. Ben Salerno and Jason Portnoy had 12 points each. Over the weekend, the 8th grade boys basketball team won the annual middle school tournament. The first game against Beck could not have been any closer. With 2 seconds left, Beck shot a 15-foot jump shot, which missed. Thus, Carusi won by 1 point. Bart Procacci had 8 points, consisting of 4 critical jump shots near the end of the game. Adam Schmidt and Jason Portnoy added 8 points each. The championship game against Haddon Township was a blowout. Carusi won by the margin of 30 points. Jason Portnoy had 12 of the 63 points scored by Carusi. All 13 players played well. Back to you, Leslie.
Thanks, Dave. Now for the girls basketball report. Here's 8th grade with Lindsay Whiterman.
The 8th grade girls basketball team lost to Marlton Tuesday. They made up for their loss after defeating Morristown by a score of 27-7. Christine Fee scored 17 of the Mustang points. The key players on defense were Chanel O'Neill, Allison Stoner, who kept Morristown scoreless for 3 quarters. The 8th grade girls basketball team came in 3rd place on Saturday in the Cherry Hill tournament. They lost to Beck in the semifinals and defeated Morristown by a convincing margin. The scoring leaders for the 2 games were Christine Fee, Stacy Edelman, Chanel O'Neill, and Kelly Woodcock. Key passers, rebounders, and defensive players were Tara Zenzinger, Corinne Elmore, and Nikki Benson. Back to you, Leslie.
Thanks, Lindsay. Good luck to all the sports teams as they continue their seasons. Now back to you, Dave.
Thanks, Leslie. We'd like to thank Mr. Hanson, our cameraman, and Mr. Gersh, our advisor. Thank you for watching. Good night.